so these are very small numbers. It's pancake flat and it's almost exactly at sea level. There's really no elevation to talk of when it comes to the Berlin course, and that's why it has produced all those world records over the years. 12 of them on this course, 8 in the last 20 years. The most recent, of course, 12 months ago. Kipchoge is still looking good. Kindi, just if anything, just moving slightly ahead. We've lost one of the pacemakers. Kemboy has also discarded his cap, so down to 2 pacemakers, and we have 2 elite athletes approaching 26 kilometres.
Now, interesting, isn't it, Chris? Because we've been talking about how that halfway split for the men, 60-22, was just about perfect. A little bit more conservative than last year, 31 seconds slower than last year, when I think we all feel he went too quick despite setting that world record. And we were saying, well, if he comes back with negative splits, then he will have got it right again this year. But about now, 26 kilometres and more on the clock, he needs to start winding it up, and I'm not seeing yet that acceleration. Remember, steady tempo for 2-hour speed is 250 per kilometre. For 2:01 pace, still a world record, 252 per kilometre, and his last 4 kilometre splits have been 255, 257, 254, 258. So they are now operating quite significantly outside 2:01 tempo, and at the moment, if they don't, I say at the moment, if this next half hour we do not see an acceleration, then they're not going to get the world record. And never mind about the 2-hour barrier. I think we can almost forget about the 2-hour barrier now, unless something superhuman comes out of those legs of Kipchoge.
Well, Kipchoge just having a word there with the only remaining pacemaker now, so we've lost 2 of the 3 pacemakers. Chepkwony, and that's another thing that Jos Herman said, it would be decided on the day which of the 3 pacemakers stays in the race for the longest, depending on how they're feeling. So actually it's Chepkwony who has remained the longest. And of course, Tim, we may have a race on our hands as well. Let's not forget, this is not yet just Kipchoge against the clock. He's got somebody else there for company. And Kindi, well, if he can hang around, Kipchoge, dare I say it, may not even win the race. We're a long way from that, but there is some racing still to be had.
Well, there is, and isn't it great that we are talking about breaking the world record? For a while we were talking about sub 2 hours, and yet we're talking about a race as well. And a race from a mystery man is what is being presented to Eliud Kipchoge. Chepkwony, I wonder, when he drops out, if we'll see Kipchoge throw the gauntlet down, or Kinde take some aggressive action, or if it'll become a cat and mouse game. They've got a big cushion, remember, back to the chasing pack. So at 25k, you've got Kinde and Kipchoge, and then Kipruto, well, 1 minute 12 seconds back, so about 400 metres back still, Chris. I think that gap is staying the same, and actually, as we talk about the chasing pack, will they start closing the gap if these fellas don't push it on?
Well, there was no sense of panic, was there, from Amos Kipruto? Every time we've dipped into him, he's remained utterly focused and metronomic behind, albeit over a minute behind. And will that gap, as you say, start to close? Still up on his toes, though. Kipchoge looking very, very determined and focused. He's had the same build-up, the same routine. He decamps and leaves his home and leaves Grace, his wife, and his 3 children, and chips in with all the chores, the washing and cleaning and the cooking. It's very much a democratic, socialist sort of team effort up at the training camp. And then he will go back down and spend maybe weekends with his wife and children. That's the routine, that's the template that served him so well. So 27 kilometres, the highest point in the course. And then there were 3. A Kenyan, an Ethiopian, and a Kenyan pacemaker, Chepkwony.
Well, the women are coming up towards 25 kilometres, and I can tell you that 24 kilometres, the women are still on schedule for a world record by well over a minute. 24k, the projected time was 2:12.44. Remember, the world record 2:14.04 by Brigid Kosgei 4 years back. So a minute and 20 up on world record schedule at 24k. And the 25k split has just come through. A 3:11 for that 25th k in the women's race. That's well, about steady. They're averaging about 3:10 per kilometre in the women's race, and 2:14 tempo is 3:10.5. So they are still very much on world record schedule.
There you can see the gap is starting to widen again. So now 9 seconds inside world record pace. That would bring him in at exactly 2 hours and 1 minute. Still a long way to go though, and the next 20 minutes could be crucial here as we approach 1:20 on the clock. So 40 minutes, 40 to 41 more minutes of this race at this tempo still to unfold, and still Eliud Kipchoge has company.
Wonderful study of the facial expression of the greatest marathon runner in history. By some margin, the greatest marathon runner in history on the men's side, Eliud Kipchoge. Still bouncing along wonderfully well. And interesting, the contrast between him and Kindi, although Kindi is very well hidden by Chepkwony at the moment. Kindi doesn't have anything like the same style. He's got a far more flat, fluid, flowing distance runner's gait than Kipchoge, who has that lovely, powerful bounce.
And you're right, Timmy. You'd have thought ordinarily that bounce would cost him energy, and that he would lose something through the return from the road. But no, it's hugely effective. Slightly wider arm coverage and lower arms for Kindi as they take on more fluid. That was a 3-minute kilometre going through 28. That is the slowest of the race so far.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the splits coming through. 2:55 for the 26th, 2:56 for the 27th, and 2:59 or 3 minutes for the 28th kilometre. And the projected finishing time now is 2:01.30, so some way outside the world record. And Kindi, of course, well, depending on how he's feeling, he'll be delighted with the way this is going. What he doesn't want is Kipchoge now to accelerate. I wonder how much longer Chepkwony will keep going. He's doing a fabulous job. Of course, these pacemakers are professionals. They're fabulous runners themselves. They're paid money for this job. Very often they're given bonuses for getting to further points beyond halfway, 25k, 30k. I know at the London Marathon when I was working with Dave Bedford at the London Marathon, we used to give bonus, I think a small bonus for every further kilometre beyond 25k, just to if they could help get the elite athletes further and further into the race at a super tempo, at a planned tempo. And I hope Chepkwony's on the same sort of deal, frankly, Chris, because he's doing a fabulous job here. I mean, approaching 29k and still pumping it out for these two.
Yeah, and actually I think he was not meant to be the lead pacemaker of the three. Can he get through to 30 kilometres? And at 30 kilometres, as seasoned marathon watchers know, often the racing starts. That's when the handbrake often comes off, and we are about 1.5 kilometres away from that. But Kindi's still there, and at what point does he start to think, do you know what, I can win this race?
Well, we can go back to the women now, and I can tell you that while things are slipping, there's a bit of slippage in the men's race in the tempo terms. While we've got a fabulous race unfolding, that world record, and forget about 2 hours now, but the world record is looking unlikely. In the women's race, it's looking more and more likely. They've gone through 25k in 1:18.40, and that is the fat end of a minute quicker than Brigid Kosgei when she set the world record in Chicago back in 2019. So Tigist Assefa here at the moment is delivering. Now I've got to say that guardedly because she's got another 50 minutes or so of running to come, but she's on schedule through 26k for 2:12.43 is Brigid Kosgei. Long way to go yet, several acts to unfold, but as you can see, look at that, 49 seconds inside world record tempo. That world record tempo, that middle line of numbers, by the way, is steady tempo. And for world record, basically 2:14, give or take. You need 3:10 per kilometre. Well, she's just keeps knocking them out. 3:08, 3:13, 3:08, 3:10, 3:06 was her 26th kilometre. She's on her own now. She has pacemakers around her. And the scenario could not have worked out better for her, Chris, because I actually think that now sort of blue sky thinking, to coin a terrible cliche, is what she's got now. She just needs to focus upon these pacemakers and the clock and not worry about racing, which in a way is a psychological complication.
Yes, and just as we say that, the sun comes out quite fittingly for the first time here in Berlin. Constant checking of the watch, but she's looking good. And this is the story as we speak, folks. This is the story of the Berlin Marathon unfolding. With all due respect to Eliud Kipchoge, things seem to be just starting to slip away. He still has got time to make that up, but at the moment he's slipped outside world record tempo. This young woman is well inside world record pace, and again, the information she's got on the back of the lead car there is absolutely vital. Isn't it, Tim? She's got her watch. She's constantly referring to the watch.
Yeah, you can see the lead car top left of picture, 2:12:44. That's telling her the schedule she's moving at. So she will know full well that's 1 hour 20 seconds, 1 minute 20 seconds inside world record schedule. There's Sheila Chepkirui Kiprotich, the wonderful Kenyan 32-year-old who set a personal best when she was third in Valencia on the 4th of December last year. She was fourth in London this year in 2:18. She's got great track PBs too. She's a 14:54 5,000 runner, 30:45 10,000. She is the real deal. She's very consistent, has run very fast half marathons as well. Said she wants around 68 minutes for halfway, and Sheila Chepkirui, well, she will have gone well inside that, just trying to establish what she did do through halfway. Looking at, just going into our system, Chepkirui went through halfway in 66:51, so she was well over a minute and more up on what she wanted for halfway. She's in uncharted territory.
Around 260 metres is her lead at the moment.
That's not enormous, is it?
No.
That's not enormous. That's, what, 50 seconds, something like that? Maybe pushing a minute for the lead women.
Closer to 300 metres, actually. But that information on the lead car is a new addition in the last few years, and it's priceless, isn't it, for the runners who, yes, they've got their watches, but they can just keep their eyes focused ahead, and it's obviously in real time as well.
She's moving wonderfully well, though, Chris. I mean, her last couple of kilometres have been 3:06 and 3:09. Assefa here. She's only running her third marathon. She's relatively inexperienced. I mean, you look at somebody like Worknesh Odessa, who was with her for the first 20k or so. She's running her 13th marathon. Hiwot Gebrekedan, a 2:19 performer who's back there behind you, is running her 12th marathon. But Tigist Assefa here, well, maybe it's that naivety, that lack of knowledge about the marathon distance that is to her advantage. She hasn't had any bad experiences. Yes, her 2:34. She said she was ill for her debut in Riyadh last year. That was in March last year. And then, of course, that fabulous win here 12 months back. And she's thinking, I'm sure, about the memory of that very positive day here a year ago, Chris. And she's just getting everything right at the moment. I mean, it is astonishing. And when you think that she's a former track runner, almost a sprinter, 54 for 400, 159 for 800, this is unbelievable.
Well, I asked you the question a few minutes ago. If you're Bridget Kosgei, what are you thinking? If you're Keely Hodgkinson or Athing Mo, what are you thinking?
If you said Keely Hodgkinson, you've got to run a 10k, I think she'd have kittens. Never mind about half marathon or a marathon. Oh, bless her. Keely Hodgkinson is very much a 400, 800 metre runner at the moment, the World Championship silver medalist. Athing Mo, who won the Diamond League final, of course, just last Sunday. She's a sub-50-second 400-metre runner. Those are pure track athletes. And yet the weird thing is about Assefa is she never went through the gears. She never went through 1,500, 3,000, 5,000 in
straight
her
to the marathon. Yeah, unbelievable. Approaching 28 kilometres, this is the Wild Boar, the Wilde Eber roundabout, and she'll pick up the noise of the bands. There's a great samba band that often parks itself here at the Wilde Eber roundabout. Brilliant atmosphere, and that again will just put an extra little spring in your step, and she'll, I'm sure, respond to that being protected by the pacemaker. There's no wind to speak of. But this is the story here of this marathon so far. Eliud Kipchoge and Kindi are well ahead, but slipping away from the world record. But the world record in the women's race is well and truly on.
Well, Chris, the men have gone through 30k in 1:26.24. That is some 45 seconds outside the splits of last year. So they are, I think, just involved in a fiercely intense race in that men's contest rather than a chase for records of any kind now, with 3/4 of the distance done. Look at the crowds here, fabulous crowds, and running through a tunnel of people like that is, well, it's at once a blessing and at the same time it can be hard work. Many years ago, obviously the last century, I ran the odd race where there were big crowds in Madrid, 10k races in Madrid and so on, where you're running through a noisy tunnel of people, and it's deafening. You can hardly think straight sometimes.
Well, these two men are thinking really clearly at the moment, approaching an hour and a half of running, so we've got just over 30 minutes left of this event, and we've got a race on our hands here. And all the while, let's pay tribute once again to Kipchoge, who is still there pacing, gone 30 kilometres, and I hope, Tim, you're right that he's in for a little extra bonus there for keeping going. Now then, is this Kipchoge on his bike and making his move? There is, for the first time, some clear daylight.
Yeah, separation at last, and this is a very tough moment for Kindi, because he's obviously been redlining for the last few kilometres. We didn't know, and his facial expression gives nothing away, but he's been right on the limit, and he's had to let go now, and he's got to manage himself through these next 10 kilometres. It's going to be very tough. In fact, 11 kilometres he's got to go. How is he going to manage himself? Having hit the red line and gone through it, in effect, he's now going to be back on his heels, and it'll be very tough for him to maintain a solid tempo, stay in second, and keep ahead of that chasing pack.
And that chasing pack, we'll keep an eye on them, because they then will start to close if he's not careful. At the moment, he's guaranteed second place as things stand, but that gap will get wider and wider ahead of him, but it could get narrower and narrower behind him. Approaching 32 kilometres, and there is the trademark smile of Eliud Kipchoge. I think he was stung, and I think he was hurt by some of the criticism after Boston. He had a bad day at the office. He doesn't have many. Just to remind you, he's won 15 of his 18 marathons. That is extraordinary. It's a success rate of 83%, which is, well, without parallel. Nobody else has got that sort of number at all. And were he to go and win today, it would be his 5th success in Berlin, moving ahead of Haile Gebrselassie. And there, just slipping away, 25 seconds outside world record at even pace. Those numbers from last year.
Now, do athletes of the calibre of Eliud Kipchoge go through bad patches and then find their legs again and rally? If so, then he's got about half an hour, about 10k of running in which to regain composure, up his tempo, and head back down towards 2:01.
And this is the moment, the trademark little look over the shoulder, first from Kipchoge, then Kipchoge, and he was away. There you go, mate. It's all yours.
Interesting, isn't it, Chris, that around the time Kipchoge broke away and created separation between himself and Kindi, there's the pacemaker Kipchoge. What a fabulous job he has done. Massive pat in the back from him.
Look at the cadence, though. Oh, and Kindi has paid. There it is, Kindi, and we're not surprised. He was redlining for most of the race, and his race is over.
But Chris, he's been on 2:01 tempo for an hour and a half. Surely he had a 2:04, 2:05 in him, and he's just not managed those resources sufficiently.
A little wonderful gesture there, a little fist pump from Kipchoge to the pacemaker to say, well done, mate, you've done a great job. But the news there is Kindi has also dropped out. So the pacemaker and Kindi, the only challenger to Kipchoge, both have finished their races. One has done a brilliant job, the other has surpassed all expectations, and now look at the cadence. It's almost as if a weight has been lifted, Tim, isn't it? Look at the body language. The smile's back on the face. He's lifted his legs. The arms are working harder. And now in the Berlin sunshine, Eliud Kipchoge is now going to set about. I mean, surely he can't wrestle back this world record from here.
I doubt it very much, although maybe there will be a freedom, Chris, psychologically now for Kipchoge on his own. Glorious isolation out in front, and this is where maybe we will see Eliud take his gloves off, so to speak. There's Kindy. He has run a fantastic 3/4 of a race, but unfortunately for him it's 42k, not 32k, and he is gone. Sad sight, but he will be back, and he'll be back with a bang, I'm sure, will Kindy. He's relatively inexperienced in the marathon distance, and he will have learnt so much from today. It'll take him a while to recover from it, but he will bank that experience, and he'll learn so much from Berlin 2023. Kipchoge here, Chris, I do think that he has an opportunity now to just stride on in his inimitable, isolated style and claw back a few seconds. At 31k, he was on 2:01:38 pace, so he's from somewhere. He's got to find 30 seconds over this next 10k to get back to world record.
It's a big ask, isn't it? Not impossible, but it is a big ask.
It's 3 seconds per kilometre. It's doable.
It's doable. But
he says sitting in his chair with a glass of water.
As long as it's only water. Yeah, there's been a definite marked in tempo and cadence here from Eliud Kipchoge. Well, normal service resumed. Marcel Hug a few minutes ago coming over the line to take the wheelchair title. Victory number 8 for the great man. The silver bullet. Winner. Yet again, Marcel Hug. A brilliant performance. And, well, a sprint finish in the end in the women's race. Catherine de Bruyne winning for the second year running. She won on debut here last year in a course record, and she's beaten the course record again. What a brilliant performance, and Manuela Scher coming through in 3rd place.
Eliud Kipchoge striding out, and around the time that Kindy dropped out, Kipchoge strode onwards, so the sun came out, and he is producing the usual. In Berlin is Eliud Kipchoge, barring disaster, Chris, heading for his 5th victory on the streets of Berlin.
It does look as though some tension has been released. He wasn't looking tense before, but I think now that he's out on his own, he's got the streets of Berlin all for himself. It's clear daylight ahead, clear water, if you like. And there's an extra little spring back in the step there. I'm not suggesting for a moment that he was worried about Kindy. He must have thought in his heart of hearts, this guy can't keep this tempo up for the entire race, and so it proved. But there's a determination now on the face of Eliud Kipchoge, who's striding out towards what would be victory number 16 in 19 races. Quite extraordinary.
Well, Tigist Assefa has gone through 30k in 1:34.12, a 3:05, that 30th kilometre. She's accelerating. Her last couple of 4 kilometres, listen to this, she's gone 3:09, 3:09, 3:03, 3:05. She's finding extra legs. As Eliud Kipchoge, just a little way up the road ahead, is struggling to get back down towards world record splits. She is pummeling the world record splits of Bridget Kosgei from 4 years ago. 3:05, 3:06, her last 2 kilometres. In fact, she's gone through 31k now, and the projected time, wait for it, folks, 2:12.27. Now, that is a time that until not too many years ago was a great international class time for a male runner. 2:12.27 is what is being projected here. Another massive barrier. Barring disasters, Chris, in about half an hour, is about 40 minutes, is coming the way of Tigist Assefa.
Yeah, more history. We asked the question at the start of the programme, would we see a little bit of history again on the streets of Berlin? And so far, the answer, thanks to this young woman, is yes, we should.
Still plenty of time to go, but Again, a little smile on the face, which is always a good sign.
Looking really nice. Eliud Kipchoge approaching 32 kilometres. Way out in front here. Kindi, just to remind you, who was his only
company for the first 31 kilometres and a bit of the race, has gone. And now Eliud Kipchoge and the chasing pack
are behind, but they are well behind. Approaching 35k, 1:40.07, I can tell you, was the split last year for 35 kilometres.
That chasing pack that Kipruto is with is 6 strong, mind you. So
they can work together.
Kindi is not now something that they could target. Kipchoge 1:11.48 at 30k. Just double checking that. Yeah.
1:26.25 at 30k. Excuse me. And the chasing pack, a minute and 17 seconds back at 30k.
Approaching 35 kilometres, Tim, and it feels to me like he may well have clawed back something of that deficit on the world record. We'll bring you the split as soon as we can. A reminder, bottom right, 1:40.07 was the split last year through 35 kilometres. He's got about another half a kilometre or just less, about 400 metres.
I don't think he is doing any clawing, Chris. His last couple of kilometres have both been 2:57s. World record tempo is 2-hour tempo is 2:50. 2:01 pace is 2:52, and he's operating some 5 or 6 seconds outside that per kilometre at the moment. So he's losing ground on his own world record at 34k. His projected winning time is 2:01.51. Remember, his world record from last year that you called so well is 2:01.09. So he's over 40 seconds outside his world record tempo at the moment, and he's got 8k in which to claw it back. It's becoming an insurmountable task.
Here is the Gedächtniskirche, the Kaiser Wilhelm Memorial Church, built in 1895, much destroyed during the Second World War, but what has remained has become and remains an important monument in Berlin.
The crowd's loving this. Familiar scenes, a sense of deja vu to some degree, Chris, as he heads along in that white vest with his sponsors on the top, and the red shorts the same as last year. The bouncing stride of Kipchoge, 35k, 1:41.10.
Yeah, so just over a minute outside the world record of last year. In fact, 63 seconds outside, so he is slipping away. It was 45 seconds 5 kilometres ago. That's just grown now by about 18 seconds. So you're absolutely right, Tim. There's no clawing back. Indeed, he's slipping away further, which then turns our attention to the chasing pack. How far behind are they? And have they got any chance at all of reeling this man in and denying him a 5th victory here in Berlin?
It would be extraordinary if they could.
So let's just look back on the men's race so far. These are the main stories in the men's and women's race. And Assefa, Tim, is the story of the women's race so far.
Well, it is, Chris, because she's got about half an hour of running to do, and she's on world record schedule. She went through halfway in 66.21, way inside world record schedule. The pacemakers done an incredible job in the men's race today. Kipchoge, the main beneficiary.
Yeah, at 31 kilometres, he lost the only other athlete who was in company. And are the chasing pack starting to gain ground, allowing for the foreshortening? This would be a real shock. Let's keep an eye on the gap between Kipchoge and the rest of the field. He's still got around 18 or 19 minutes.
47 seconds the gap is down to now at 35k. 1:41.10 for Kipchoge, and Kipruto chasing 1:41.57.
So 47 seconds the gap. Kipchoge looks to have
slowed here. Remember, only once before has he not won in Berlin. That was on debut in 2013, beaten into second place by Wilson Kipsang. It's not a position he has experienced on his other visits here in Berlin. And Tim, tell me, how much information will he be getting from the bikes and the people about that gap and what it's doing behind him?
I wonder, because his management agency, Jos Hermans, and his entourage are here, but is anybody able to be yelling information at him at the moment? I'm not sure. I don't see anybody that he's familiar with on bikes alongside him, so he'll be doing his own computations. Whether he will be aware that that gap is gradually closing from the chasing pack, I don't know, but here you can see Tigist Assefa.
Still looks very calm, doesn't she? Her demeanour, her facial expression, giving nothing away. And Assefa here has gone through 33k at the moment with a 3:04. She is accelerating. I mean, her times these last 5 kilometres, 3:03, 3:05, 3:06, 3:05, 3:04. Metronomic running, albeit with a slight acceleration from the previous 5k. Her projected time at 33k with 9k to go, 2:12.17. I mean, if she keeps this up, Chris, we could see, and this just sounds like science fiction, we could see a 2:11 something winning time for Tigist Assefa here. It is just astonishingly strong running. There it is, 1 minute 22 seconds inside the steady tempo for world record. 1:44.50 it should be at 33k. She's on 1:43.28. It's a massive margin from that virtual figure of Bridget Kosgei, who's way down the road behind her.
Excuse me, just talking across pictures, but in the men's race, in that chasing pack, we have 2 debutantes at the marathon distance. Tadessa Tekeli from Ethiopia and Vincent Kipchoge from Kenya, both making their debuts and both in that chasing pack. So that would be quite a story, along with Amos Kipruto. Remember, the gap was 47 seconds at 35 kilometres. We'll keep an eye and see if that's closing, and if so, by how much.
Well, Gebru here, doing a great job. I don't know if there's any communication going on between them, if she's been speaking to him at all, maybe at moments when we haven't had a camera on them. We saw her passing drinks to him about 45 minutes ago. There was plenty of coordination between the pair, and she's tucked in, slipstreaming him here, getting a very, very slight advantage from that slipstreaming effect. It may seem insignificant. She's so close to him, I'm almost worried she might clip his heels, look. But there is a very, very slight, we're talking about these tiny, tiny marginal gains. There's a slight marginal gain from being tucked in behind somebody and running along their slipstream. So her 33rd kilometre was at 3:04, before that a 3:05 and a 3:06 and a 3:05. And that information on that lead vehicle that she needs to see isn't there right now, but she will be fully aware that she's heading here at the moment for a world record. Gebru rocking from side to side. He's having a little grimace to himself. It's hard work. It's understandable. He's running 2:12 pace.
Yeah, it's meant to hurt. And this a significant part of the course. This is the Kurfürstendamm, the Kudamm, one of the most famous streets in Berlin, where the finish line was. Actually, she's approaching 34 kilometres. And between 1981 and 2000, this is where the Berlin Marathon actually finished before it was moved and then moved again. Huge crowds. They'll go past KaDeWe, the famous department store as well, and then over the Spree for the second time. But Assefa, irresistible.
So she's put the opposition to bed long ago now. She's been in fabulous form. Last year, 3 half marathons she won. She won here in Berlin. Her personal best for a half marathon, by the way, it's not spectacular. You know, there are plenty of athletes around now who are running 64, 65 minutes. She's run 67 minutes. That was in Germany back in April last year. She's very much focused upon this event now.
Well, the chasing group, look at that, are now, what, just about 200 metres behind. This is getting interesting. This is getting very, very interesting, and a little bit worrying for Eliud Kipchoge, who's still looking good. The bounce is still there, but is the tempo, is the rate at which he's running slower than that of the chasing pack? My impression is, Tim, that they are gaining, and we'll be able to bring you confirmation of that at 40k, but my sense is that that gap is closing.
Well, that's 6 or 7 minutes away yet. It'll be great to be able to see the gap back to that chasing group. But his last couple of kilometres are 2:59 and 2:57, and the gap is 43, 44 seconds. There you can see it's hovering around 43 seconds. So it has closed a little bit. Over the last few minutes, it's gone from, well, now we're seeing it's 47.52. It's hard to tell, that's quite some variation. Well, but if it's around 45 seconds, I think he'll be safe because they're not closing it quickly enough. They're going to run out of road.
They're going to run out of road, and just to remind you, it was 47 seconds at 35 kilometres. It is closing, but not enough. Here is Kipruto. We haven't seen much of him throughout the race. And the two debutants there, I mentioned, in the red, Vincent Kipchoge on debut. He's got a 59.09 half marathon personal best. And on the right of picture there, Tadesse Tekele,
the 21-year-old, a 59.41 half marathon personal best. That was in Herzogenaurach in Germany last April. What a debut, though, for these two. I mean, this is a story within the story, Tim, isn't it? Two marathon debutants here, and at the moment, Kipchoge in the red just disappeared off picture. There he is lying in second place. This is the chasing group, around 44, 45 seconds behind Eliud Kipchoge.
Yeah, good to see this chasing group and the athletes therein wearing three. Is it three?
Yeah, Kipruto.
It is Kipruto.
He's losing ground, so they're the two debutants here, running their first ever marathon, and in second and third place at the moment in this race.
Tough this for Kipruto, Chris. He's very experienced at 30. Yeah, he has run a 2:03. That was in Tokyo in March last year when he finished second to Eliud Kipchoge. He's in his 15th marathon, so he's got plenty of experience, and he will know probably that the writing is on the wall as he struggles to see those two go away from him.
So, a little over 10 minutes of running left for Eliud Kipchoge, with a chasing group who are slightly gaining on him, but we feel that they're going to run out of road. They've only got around 4 kilometres left, and Eliud Kipchoge, there he is, in splendid solitary isolation into the latter stages of this race. Down the Kudamm, he's going to do those dog legs and come out eventually on Unter den Linden. There he is, going past, I think he's going past our hotel, Tim, as we speak there, on the Leipziger Straße.
Oh look, Chris, there's somebody going through your room, helping themselves to your laptop. Yeah, a little bit of cloud cover today, a little bit of mist over the city when they started nearly 2 hours ago now, and that was probably playing to the benefit of the athletes because it's kept it cool. A little bit chilly if you're walking around in shirt sleeves or a t-shirt, but ideal for marathon running as you continue to sweat and benefit from that sweating. When it gets hot and humid and temperature climbs, then it's much, much tougher conditions. There is Eliud Kipchoge, massive bicycles trying to keep up with this fella around the streets of the German capital. And that chasing group, that chasing pair, Chris, have got him in their sights now. And it's significant when you turn a corner and you can see somebody up the road ahead of you. It gives you that incentive. It's like a carrot being dangled in front of you.
It is. We shouldn't get carried away by the foreshortening, of course, of those pictures. It makes it look as though they're just behind him. But they are still significantly behind. But the question is, are they gaining? And if so, by how much? And have they got enough road left? Kipchoge's got a little over 3 kilometres to go. There we are, Kipchoge left of picture, and the chasing group, goodness me. Now, at what point, Tim, does Kipchoge look over his shoulder, if at all? Knowing him, he won't. He won't give them the satisfaction of knowing that they're there.
Well, Chris is 38th kilometre at 3:03. The world record holder, the defending champion, is tiring. That's his slowest kilometre of the race. 3:03 for kilometre 38 from Eliud Kipchoge, and they are chasing. They've got a target. He's got a target on his back, in effect. Or at least he would have for them if they could see beyond this car that's right behind him, which is a little bit weird.
So Kipchoge in the red is leading the charge. A group of 3, Kipchoge and Tekele, new names in marathon running, alongside Amos Kipruto, who's finished second behind Eliud Kipchoge. on several occasions. But there is Kipchoge wearing 69 in his first ever World Marathon Major, his first ever marathon of any sort. And at the moment, and look at that, what an incentive that is. And they are gaining, no doubt about it. Has Eliud got enough road?
Well, he's got to remain calm here. He's 11 seconds up on them at the moment, up on the world record schedule, 11 seconds over world record schedule, I should say. So he's still moving at a remarkable pace, but that last kilometre a little bit worrying. 3:03, the world record. He was this stage, he was knocking out 250s, 252s, and they are closing all the time. There is a race on here. This is a fascinating final act yet to unfold here, Chris.
Well, we've been talking about numbers through most of the last couple of hours, and once again, I hope you've not found that too much of an overkill, but with all due respect, I think the numbers now go out of the window. This is all about racing, and this is all about this man, for example. Vincent Kipchoge was speaking to one of his team the other day and said he's really looking forward to seeing what he can do here. Just to remind you, never run a marathon before, 59:09. His best effort, that was last year over the half marathon. Based in Kenya, so we could be heading for a Kenyan 1-2. We've also got the Ethiopian Tadessa Dekele in there as well, also on debut. Approaching 40 kilometres. And that gap is getting narrower and narrower. Remember, at 35k, the gap in terms of time was 47 seconds. It feels as though that has got a lot closer. How much is Kipchoge tiring? Just over 2 kilometres to go for what would be a 5th Berlin victory. And Tim, it's barely credible, but I ask you the question, can Eliud Kipchoge hang on?
Well, it's a very good question, because can you imagine, as they go through the Brandenburg Gate, them being side by side? The smile is there. Is it a grimace? Is it the Kipchoge version of a grimace? His 38th kilometre at 3:03, his 39th kilometre at 3:01, Chris. And just looking as he's approaching 40k, there he goes through 2:55. He has rallied, maybe got a little glance at those behind him. Kipchoge 1:56.06 at 40k.
He's picked it up, and you know, last year he did back-to-back 2:52s in the last 2 kilometres, and he looks as though he's rallied here. Maybe the message got through and he's just picked it up. He's not about to relinquish his Berlin crown that easily, and there's a definite injection of pace. And has he got enough of a buffer there to get him home over the line? 31 seconds at 40k, so they've made up 16 seconds over 5 kilometres. The gap is still a reasonably healthy 31 seconds. Can they make that up in 2.2 kilometres?
I think they're going to run out of road now. That's still over half a minute, Chris. He's, as you said, his previous couple of kilometres have been a 3:03, a 3:01. That 40th kilometre for the world record holder, 2:56. The competitive instincts coming to the surface now as he realises he's in danger, and he's having to dig very, very deep here. There's still loads of bounce in that gorgeous stride of his. The world record 2:01.29, and look at those winning times, Chris. I mean, they just get quicker and quicker.
Well, that's his record here in Berlin, the 4 victories. He's heading for number 5. Haile Gebrselassie has also won on 4 occasions, so if he can hang on here, he would be out on his own in terms of Berlin wins. It would be 5 out of 6. There's the chaser, Kipchoge in the red. There he is on debut, having the race of his life. And what an incentive that is. Has he got enough time? There is that Gendarmenmarkt, one of the loveliest squares in the whole of Berlin. They'll do a series of dog legs, turning left, then right, then left, then right, and eventually they'll come out onto Unter den Linden. And there, Kipchoge will see the Brandenburg Gate and a familiar sight. And he knows almost every inch of this tarmac. He's run it on so many occasions, and all bar one, he's won it. Into the last kilometre or so. Still looking full of bounce. This has been a very different race for Eliud Kipchoge to any other one he's done here in Berlin. The clock ticking round to approaching the 2-hour mark. The world record is not going to be beaten today. The sub-2 that we thought might be on in the early parts of the race has gone as well. Well gone. And he's picked it up, hasn't he, here, Tim? I think he's picked up the knees. The cadence is increasing.
We are going to see a world record, however, in that women's contest. There's little doubt of that now. I can tell you Assefa is still pumping out 3:07 per kilometre. If she was going to run 2:14 exactly, she'd be running 3:10 per kilometre. But she's way inside that. She's going to threaten the 2:12 barrier. I mean, her last kilometre, a 3:02 now, at 38k for Assefa. Her projected finishing time has come down to 2:12.07. Can you believe? It is, she's pushing now a 2-minute improvement on the world record.
Well, the current world recorder in the men's race has got one more significant turn to come. That's his view. He will turn left onto Unter den Linden in the sunshine. And it feels from here as though he's done enough. We look out for the red vest of Kipchoge behind him, the debutant, but Eliud Kipchoge turning left then, and the familiar sight of Unter den Linden, the tree-lined avenue, so significant over the years. The Hotel Adlon will come into view on his left, and from here we can't see it, but Eliud Kipchoge can. There he can now. There is the Brandenburg Gate, and from there he knows it's less than a lap of the track in track terms. Surely now he can't be beaten. The clock ticks round to 2 hours and 30 seconds. The world record will have to wait for another day, but Eliud Kipchoge is now on his way to a 5th Berlin victory.
Chris, that glorious sight of Kipchoge with just a few hundred metres to go, the glorious sight for him for the first time with the Brandenburg Gate, that is almost like the finish line. It's like a forewarning of the finish. If he gets there in first place with a gap behind him, then he can enjoy those last 352 metres to the finish line. He can stride out, wave to the crowd and accept his 5th victory. That is surely what's coming his way. It has been yet again a marvellous performance from Kipchoge, who for so long threatened the world record, but now is just threatening to win for the 5th time. Barring disaster, he's nearly home and dry.
Well, his current world record has just come and gone. 2:01.09 was last year. It's still going to be a pretty good time. He's still going to come in and around 2:02 and bits, but the sunshine is out as he goes through the arches of the famous Brandenburg Gate, opened in 1791, and from here it's 352 metres, less than a lap of the track. He's been here so many times before, the crowd going crazy, the sunshine is out, and the stage is set for Eliud Kipchoge, who for the first time looks over his shoulder. The victory is secure. They had been threatening to come back at him. At one point we were talking about sub 2 hours. At another point for much of the race we talked about a new world record. That's not to be, but Eliud Kipchoge now is on his way to victory number 5 here in Berlin. Another masterful performance on the streets of the German capital, and now he can enjoy his moment. The pressure is off. Kipchoge in the red is behind him. What a race he's had. It will bring him home in a few minutes, but he's almost there. The finish line is there. The last few metres for Eliud Kipchoge. A different race here in Berlin for the first time, but it's victory number 5 for Eliud Kipchoge. 2:02.40 the winning time. The world record not bothered today, but he won't mind. He moves ahead of Haile Gebrselassie with a 5th victory in total in Berlin. That's 16 wins in 19 marathons. And what about the story here for our second placer? Brilliant performance, Vincent Kipchoge, his first ever marathon. No wonder he's celebrating. What a moment for the youngster. Yes, that's all about marathon running. Well done to Kipchoge, and Tadesse Tekele comes home in 3rd. The 2 debutants, 2nd and 3rd. Tekele from Ethiopia, the 21-year-old, comes home in 3rd place. So The master gets the victory, and the two apprentices, well, they've learnt their craft really well on this opening day. Brilliant performance by Eliud Kipchoge, and the Kenyan crowds, who are out here in number, are loving their moment. Victory number 5, a 5-star performance from Eliud Kipchoge.
And the Kenyans celebrate yet again in style, proudly waving their banners aloft. What a run from Kipchoge. Officially his time 2:02.42, by the way. Another supreme performance where he turned back the challenges of the pretenders. 1-2 for Kenya, with Tadesse Takele of Ethiopia in his debut, running 2:03.24 behind the debut run of Kipkemoi, 2:03.13 for second. Oh dear.
Well, just to put it into context quickly, 2:02.42 is the 8th fastest time in history, so not too shabby.
Now, Tigist Assefa, back to her. We've been talking about the wonderful racing for the last half hour or so in the men's race. This is not racing, this is an exhibition performance from the Ethiopian. The reigning champion, the defending champion, the champion to be surely in just a few minutes' time. 2 hours, 4 minutes on the clock. Her projected winning time now has been gradually coming down towards 2:12. Her 39th kilometre was a 3:07. And that gave her a projected winning time of 2:12.07. And look at this, 1 minute 47 inside the world record. Bridget Kosgei's performance has been, threatened but not broached since 4 years ago, 2019 in Chicago, when she lopped well over a minute off the long-standing, fabulous world record of Paula Radcliffe. Well, now the world record of Bridget Kosgei is about to be resigned to history, because this will be the world record holder surely in just a very few minutes' time, about 7 minutes away. Tigist Assefa through 40k in 2:05.14, 2:05.13. There is the first German, yes.
Emmanuel Petros coming home in 2:04.59, so he said he was on 2:04 shape. It's a huge personal best. He's taken over a minute off his previous lifetime best on debut in Berlin, and surely has qualified for Paris next year in the Olympic Games. Well done to Emmanuel Petros, the German number 1.
Through 40k then in 2:05.14. Bridget Kosgei went through 40k in 2:07.11. She's 1 minute 57 seconds ahead of Bridget Kosgei. And still looking strong. The shoulders, the arms maybe beginning to roll from side to side a little bit more. Jared Ward there. Well, he was 6th in the Rio Olympic Games, was Jared Ward, coached by my old mucker, my old friend Ed Eyestone, great marathon runner and 10,000 metre runner of years gone by. Jared Ward, the supremely cerebral marathon racer. Now in the latter years of his career, he would be the first to admit that. But here, chasing the leading woman, I wonder if pride will make him stick with her and ease past her once they're through the Brandenburg Gate. Gebru is of the three is the one who's had to do the hard running. Gebru, the pacemaker, really straining here to help her Assefa through these final few kilometres to the finish line. Chris, she is trusting, relying upon Gebru. They're linked together, they're by a band no more than about a metre long. She is stuck with him kilometre after kilometre, and he has been the most wonderful, wonderful lead for her.
Well, he's done all the heavy lifting, hasn't he? And he's made it relatively straightforward for her. But he looks as though he's really suffering now, and he's just gesturing, and maybe he's about to move and give her clear daylight. Approaching 41 kilometres, they've got just 2 more turns before they come into Unter den Linden, and as we saw with Eliud Kipchoge, once that final turn is negotiated and the Brandenburg Gate comes into view, then the heart can lift, and then you know you're home.
Well, the first time 2:20 was broken for the marathon was here in Berlin. Naoko Takahashi back in 2001 for Japan, winning with 2:19.46. Now, there are no less than 65 women who have broken 2 hours 20 for the marathon. Jared Ward there to left of picture, just striding out, feeling strong, maybe feeling he was almost hypnotised by sticking behind Assefa when he knew he could go a little bit quicker. But it matters not a jot, because Gebru, rightly there, saying to Assefa, come on, move to the fore, get the glory yourself. I think he's very aware here that maybe he's sort of hogging the camera shot, and it's not his fault. World record 2:14.04, you can see bottom right of picture there by Bridget Kosgei. That, back in Chicago on the 13th of October 2019, was a historic improvement. The world record prior to that was Paula Radcliffe's 2:15.25 in London back in 2003. Well, it's about to take another massive jump, a bigger jump even than Kosgei managed 4 years ago, and we never thought we'd see that, Chris.
No, we didn't. I think the gesturing is to make sure that she sticks to the shortest line, the blue line, making sure she doesn't waver even by a few centimetres. There is again, pointing to the blue line. That's your line, and there's the prize, and there's the Brandenburg Gate.
The Brandenburg Gate then beckons for Tigist Assefa, the 2022 champion, who in winning 12 months ago in 2:15.37 became the third fastest woman in history, is going to be the 2023 champion, but it's a very different story. She's running here towards a place in the history books. She's running towards a new world record, and she's going to better the world record of Bridget Kosgei from 4 years ago in Chicago by possibly more than 2 minutes. At 41k, her clocking for the kilometre was 3:03. Her projected time 2:12.01. Now, if she can rally this last few hundred metres, could she break the 2:12 barrier? Unheard of improvement from this woman, Tigist Assefa, 29 years old, in only her third ever marathon. There's Gebru, her pacemaker, who has done such a marvellous job. He's coached her through, coaxed her through, and now she approaches the Brandenburg Gate. It will be her retaining of the title here in Berlin, and he gestures her on with a wave there, almost a push through the Brandenburg Gate and into the glorious Berlin sunshine for Tigist Assefa. Look at the clock, 2:11 on the clock. She's got 300 metres to go. Can she get under 2:12? I think she can. She's going to better the world record, possibly here, by over 2 minutes. She's striding away now. This is the young girl who many years ago, back in 2014, ran 54 seconds for 400, a world-class 1:59 for 800 metres. And today, she becomes world record holder in the marathon, surely. A couple hundred metres to run. Tigist Assefa takes the world record to Ethiopia, snatches it from the grasp of Bridget Kosgei of Kenya from 4 years ago in Chicago. A few metres to go, still no smile, still that focus, and the world record is hers. And look at the clock, 2 hours 11:52, unofficially. History is made. It is writ large in spectacular manner here in Berlin. 2:11:52. Let that sink in. I love it. Stops her own watch. Maybe some 30 seconds or so too late. But her coach there, Gebru Keremimedu, giving her a huge hug. She took 2.5 minutes off the course record last year. Well, she's just locked more than 3.5 minutes off her own course record from a year ago. And we are in science fictional territory here. Gebru gives her a huge hug. What a job he's done as her pacemaker throughout, all the way through to about 42 kilometres. He left the glory stretched to her. But Chris, that is the marathon performance of the year, the marathon performance in many respects for many years from Tigist Assefa. A delightful story from a young woman last year who shocked us all with that personal best by 18 minutes. Who thought she'd improve her personal best by over 3 minutes in a huge new world record today?
Well, that is life-changing, isn't it? What a privilege to have witnessed that here in Berlin. And I'm looking at the numbers again. 2:11.52. I mean, there are some 800-metre runners who will be pleased with that as the numbers for an 800 metres race on the track, 2:11. But it's 2 hours, 11 minutes, 52 seconds. No wonder the coach is delighted. A little bit of history. And just a word about Paula Radcliffe. We haven't mentioned it already in commentary, but she's out on the course today, pacing a group at around 3:30 pace. And when you think about, Tim, the 2:15.25 that stood for over a decade, this has just sent that world record into the stratosphere. Bridget Kosgei, 2:14.04, and now 2:11.53 is the official time. 2:11.53, a new women's marathon record. Just staggering.
No wonder she's giving those shoes a kiss. They have carried her well all the way through to the performance of all time in the women's marathon. Conditions perfect this morning in Berlin, but so many other things have to come together. Get your ducks in a row, as they say. So many things have to be aligned right. The training has to go well, day in, day out, week in, week out, for many months prior to a performance like this. Travel has to be right, the sleep has to be right beforehand, the food, the diet has to be right. Everything has to click, and it has today in spectacular fashion. That is huge credit to her and her support team. And here, the second place, by the looks of things, Sheila Kipchoge, when we can get her in focus, 32 years old, and she, coming towards the Brandenburg Gate, may threaten her personal best. She's about 2 minutes inside it at the moment, 2:17.29 for third in Valencia last December. She was fourth in London in 2:18.51. She is tired, though. Look at the difference. The stride, the gait of Assefa at this stage a few minutes ago was powerful. It was adrenaline fueled. It was an acceleration, whereas Sheila Kipchoge here, half smile, half grimace for her as she closes in on what looks to be a pretty comfortable second place.
Yeah, had a baby daughter back in 2018, ran that personal best in Valencia on debut, 2:17.29. Dropped out of the sport in 2008, didn't return to elite athletics until 2015, so she had a number of years away from the sport. Then, of course, there was the interruption from COVID. But here she is, Tim, with just over 350 metres to go.
Well, last year she mixed her track and road racing, including a win in the Berlin half marathon. That was in a 65:02. She became the 7th fastest ever in the half marathon, with third at the Ras Al Khaimah half marathon. She took a bronze medal in the Commonwealth Games 10,000 metres, behind Eilish McColgan's marvellous victory in the Vest of Scotland. And she has great track personal bests, and her last 4 half marathons, listen to this, 64, 67, 64, 65. Fabulously consistent at the half marathon. At the age of 32, can she improve? Well, she's not going to improve her best today, 2:17.29, almost up on the clock, bottom right of your screen. But it has nonetheless been a marvellous run from Sheila Kipchoge. Couldn't match Assefa for very long, and hardly surprising now when you see Assefa's winning time to 11:53 to give it the exact right mark, as Chris said. And she is hurting. She looks mortal, and that is almost reassuring for some of us who have been there in years gone by. She is working so hard for this time, and it's not far outside her lifetime best. A brilliant second there for Sheila Kipchoge in Berlin. And that official second place time for Sheila Kipchoge was just inside 2:18. It was about half a minute outside her lifetime best. Waiting for that to come through.
6 minutes the difference between Tigist Assefa in first and second place Kipchoge.
And Kipchoge taking second, and Shauri coming through for third place. And this is, again, has been a lonely run for her through the latter stages. Stressed, no time for smiling from her. Magdalena Shauri of Tanzania from the Arusha club takes third place in Berlin 2023, making her debut, and she runs 2:18:48, something like that. She's a 66-minute half marathon runner, but 2:18:50, something like that.
2:17:49.
By the way, 2:17:49. 5 minutes 56 behind that astonishing run of Assefa. Let me just say it again for you in case it hasn't quite sunk in. 2:11:53, the winning time in the Berlin Marathon for the first woman home. A new world record by 2 minutes and 11 seconds.
There is Odessa, who was in contention, wasn't she, for the first half of the race?
Here it is again, the winning form of Tigist Assefa, crossing the line in 2 hours, 11 minutes, 53 seconds, lopping 2 minutes and 11 seconds off what itself was a fabulous world record by Bridget Kosgei back in 2019. In 4 years, it now leaps forward over 2 minutes. And dare I say it, in 4 years' time, we'll be looking at a woman running under 2:10. It is unthinkable until this last 4 or 5 years that women could get down to these sorts of times. But Tigist Assefa is the BMW Berlin Marathon champion of 2023 in a stunning world record. And of course it means this race, this course, this city now has both world records for men and women.
Yeah, the 13th world record to be set on this course, and Berlin continues to maintain its reputation as the fastest marathon on the planet, bar none. Proof again today. Mark Milder, we saw him earlier, among the first to congratulate Tigist Assefa, will be delighted as race director. What is it about Berlin? What is it about this place at this time of the year? All the ingredients have to be there in the right mix. But the most important of them is a world-class athlete in tip-top shape. And in Tigist Assefa, we certainly had that today. We had the usual pancake flat course, the weather, the temperature, perfect. No wind, a cool start, and then the sunshine comes out in the latter stages just to enhance the photographs. And Tim, we should say, €50,000 bonus for the world record.
Yeah, quite a handy morning's work, but of course it represents many months of hard endeavour. Well, she followed the blue line around the city, marked by 3 little stripes every few metres. She had 3 stripes on her shoes just to match that, and it was a 3-stripe performance. In fact, more like a general performance from her to win here today. F22, that is Dominika Meyer of Germany, from the Bayern Police and the Tellesfinanz Regensburg club. She won Hanover this year, or last year rather, in 2:26:50, and she will be the leading German woman home. She might well yet, yes she will, set a massive personal best. Look at this, she's probably got about a minute and a half to go. She is going to run under 2:24, I think, is Dominika Meyer. What a run from her, the 32-year-old, being encouraged all the way there through the Brandenburg Gate. And is that Chris Thompson? It is. Chris Thompson left a picture.
Yes, Tomo.
Tomo, an Olympian for Great Britain in Tokyo 2021, is encouraging Meyer through. He's done a pretty good job, if indeed he was her pacemaker. And reasons to be cheerful for German distance running. Just going back to the men's result. Petros, the leading German home today, in 9th place. 2:04:58. So Petros, well, he was looking to improve his own personal best of 2:06:27. He did that by almost a minute and a half, albeit missing that European record, which was under 2:04. And Meyer here, well, she will come home by the looks of things, in 10th place. Charlotte Purdue, by the way, in 9th place, 2:22.17 for Great Britain. That's a new personal best for her.
Good to see her back.
Ethiopians, though, filling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the top 8 places. And here comes the German champion for this year. What a run it is. What a brilliant run it is for Dominika Meier.
And 10 the qualifying time for the Olympics, 2:26.50. And she's well under that for the Olympic qualifying time for Paris.
Tape down that right hamstring and all. Superb performance from Meier. And she's just run herself into the Paris Olympic team for Germany. Olympic Games marathon next year is on the 10th of August, by the way. Mark that in your diaries.
Well, Eliud Kipchoge put in a 5-star performance today. There was no world record, which looked on the cards for the first half of the race, at least a much more measured first half than last year. But he got home in the sunshine, was threatened. The gap was closing between the chasing pack, but there's the moment when he came home to take his 5th Berlin victory, 5 out of 6, and that's 16 wins in 19 marathons. An extraordinary performance from the greatest marathon runner in history. 38 years old, he turns 39 in November. 2:02.42 is the 8th fastest time in history. He now has 5 of the 8 fastest times of all time. So let's hear what he has got to say. How was it for you, Eliud?
For you, because you were on world record pace, you fell away, and then were you coming under pressure at the end?
Yes, I was really in a good way, but at the end of it, a little bit hiccups, but it's normal in a race.
What was going through your head during the first half of the race? Because it was looking really good, very fast paced, not quite as fast as last year. So many of us were thinking you can break the world record again.
I was expecting to do the same, but it's not come as I expected. But that's how sport is.
So even you can learn, shall we say, lessons from a win?
Absolutely, yes. I've learned lessons. I have won, but I did not break a world record. So it's going back again. Every race is a learning lesson.
And I know you always talk about regeneration, recovery after a race, but of course everybody's thinking of the Olympics and Paris. What does this experience tell you about your chances to become the first man ever to win 3 Olympic marathons?
I want to really concentrate on get all the experience for the 21 marathons and put all the experience in next year in Olympics in Paris and try to be in the podium or to win for the 3rd time ever and make history.
Thank you very much, Eliud.
Paris definitely on his mind. Just a slight air perhaps of disappointment there at not challenging the world record at the end, but full marks and still learning, Tim, still learning even at 38 years old.
Yeah, you know, we talked earlier on about how Eliud was going for a 3rd Olympic title during the race, and I wanted to say what I admire is that continual hunger. You know, this fella has become very, very wealthy through his fabulous sporting exploits in middle and long distance running. He has achieved it all, 2 Olympic golds, world titles, wins galore everywhere, and yet he wants more. He keeps that hunger. He wants to get up every morning and get on with the daily routine of training hard, that grind, that monastic lifestyle, and he deserves a huge pat on the back for retaining that hunger.
The race tide looking resplendent.
Yeah, 2 spectacular days today. Yeah, the German Parliament building there, looking quite marvellous in the sun that has now burnt off the early morning mist. But when they did start this morning at 9:15, Kipchoge, the defending champion, and Assefa, the defending women's champion, were both headed. We didn't know at that moment. Both headed his heels. Kipchoge turning back all challenges, coming home to victory by, well, a good slab, more than 30 seconds. Tigist Assefa, the performance of the day, smashing the world record of Brigid Kosgei by over 2 minutes, 2:11.53. And there's a slight breeze across the city if you stand up on one of the taller buildings, but down at street level the flags just hang limply. It is a glorious Sunday morning, still not even midday local time here in the German capital. And Chris, the reverberations of that performance from Tigist Assefa will head out around the world like ripples from a stone landing in a pond. I mean, it has been quite extraordinary, but confirmation of the results.
Yeah, 2:02.42, the important number for Eliud Kipchoge this morning in terms of time, but confirmation that that was his 5th victory in Berlin. Congratulations too for the 2 new boys, Vincent Kipchoge from Kenya in his first ever marathon, 2:03.13, and Tadesse Tekele, the young Ethiopian, coming through in 3rd place. Confirmation of the German, Amanal Petros, coming through, 2:04.58 on the first page there, the first German home. And excellent performances also from the likes of Henrik Pfeiffer, who was on the press conference. The 3rd German home, Samuel Fitfi, 2:08.28. 2:08.10, a reminder, is the Olympic qualifying time.
The first 9 going under 2:05 in that men's race. Amanal Petros 9th with 2:04.58, but the women's winner, well, in a new world record, Tigist Assefa, setting spectacular new numbers, 2:11.53. Let's hear from her.
Tigist, today you have made history. How does that feel?
በጣም ደስተኛ ነኝ ምክንያቱም ይሄ ሪከርድ የሃርድ ወርከር ነው በጣም ደስታዬ ወደር የለውም እግዚአብሔር ይመስገን ነው ምለው እግዚአብሔር ስጦታ ነው ለኔ
Meine Freude ist grenzenlos.
Sorry,
in English.
Can we start it from the top? Today, Tigist, you have made history. How does that feel?
በጣም ደስተኛ ነኝ በጣም ወደር ያለው ደስታ ነው የተሰማኝ ምክንያቱም ይሄ የሃርድ ወርከር ውጤት ነው አምላኬን ነው ማመስገን የምፈልገው የእግዚአብሔር ስጦታ ነው ነው ምለው እኔ
I think that is the result of hard working which I have done for the last year.
You made such a big improvement. Did you expect to break 2 hours 12?
እውነት ለመናገር በዚህ ልክ ሰብረዋለሁ ብዬ አላሰብኩም ግን ወርልድ ሪከርዱን እንደምሰብር አምሹሮኝ ነው የመጣሁት
That I broke the record with such a result was not but in some form I wanted to have to not to break the record but not in such a category.
You have achieved such a wonderful victory and world record. Do you feel that you're now a favourite to win the Olympic title, the women's marathon in Paris next year?
ድሉን አግኝቻለሁ መረጣለሁ ብዬ አስባለሁ ወርልድ ሻምፒዮን አልፎኛል በመምወዳይ ያገሬም በዚህ ጉዳይ የሚመለከታቸው ድሉን ይሰጡኛል ብዬ አስባለሁ ምክንያቱም ወርልድ ሻምፒዮን መመረጥ ነበረብኝ ድሉን አላገኘውም ነገር ግን በዚህ አጋጣሚ ይክሱኛል ብዬ አስባለሁ አንድ ድል ይቀረኛል ፉሮኜ ለመመረጥ
The decision lies in the hands of the committee members but I have set a point now which will not be ignored so I hope I will participate in the Olympic Games in Paris.
Tigist, I think they will find it very hard to ignore you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Well, yes, she'll be in the Olympic team. I don't think there's much doubt about that. Barring injury, she will get to the start line in Paris at the Olympic Games next year in August as very strong favourite for Olympic gold. Now here's a little figure for you. When Eliud Kipchoge won the Olympic marathon in 1964 for Ethiopia, he ran 2:12.11. It was a world record. His time has just been beaten by Tigist Assefa, who has taken the win here in Berlin in 2:11.53. How time moves on. Confirmation of the win for Tigist Assefa, 2:11.53. Fabulous running from Chepkirui for second place. They're a tired-looking Sheila Chepkirui for Kenya. Magdalena Shauri broaching new ground, the Tanzanian there, 2:18.41 to make it onto the rostrum. And the first 8 women home going under 2:20. Brilliant packing from the Ethiopians in particular in the top 10. Good running too from Delvine Maringo, the former Kenyan for Romania in 12th place, 2:23. The German Dominika Meyer in 14th, the first German home. She may well too have run herself into a place in the German Olympic team. Fabienne Schlumpfluck, 2:25.27 in 15th for Switzerland. And the Americans, Frisbee and Jacqueline Dorgan, both there in the top 20 as well.
Just time to take a breath, really, isn't it? It's been breathless stuff in Berlin this morning, as so often it has. We've seen another chapter of history. It's the first I've had a women's world record here. The 13th time a world record has been set here in the German capital as the runners continue to flood over the finish line. Nearly 48,000, as we mentioned, started and crossed the start line a little over 2.5 hours ago, and there'll be plenty more out on the course for several more hours as the temperature starts to rise, continues to rise throughout the day here on this glorious Sunday morning. Personal bests, reasons for running, backstories, as always, all very personal.
In the green there, coming home wearing F47 is Anya Culling of Great Britain. She has a best of 2:34.45. That was in Copenhagen earlier on this year. She's going to be just outside that with Culling. This is still great running. These athletes coming home in around 2:36. That is about, if you don't mind it in non-metric, about 6 minutes per mile. 2:36. Still brilliant running. These are athletes who still have to train very, very hard indeed. Their lifestyles dominated by their vocational decision to become marathon runners and give it everything. And I think they would all know, Chris, that on a day like this with pretty much zero wind, with 12-13 degrees at the start time and not, you know, the temperature's climbing, but it's never become user unfriendly, has it? The temperature now in Berlin is about 17 or 18, even though the sun is bearing down, the late September sunshine. They will all know they'll never get better conditions than this.
Absolutely right. I think the keyboard operator who's putting in the results will be using the letters P and B quite frequently today. A lot of lifetime bests, I'm sure, for all of these runners. 2:36 is a very tasty time. That's a time that I could only dream of back in my marathon running days. Really very, very good indeed. 6-minute miling is not at all shabby. Great to see so many Kenyan fans here. They've taken over that stand, and the Ethiopian flag's out in evidence as well. The domination, Tim, of both these races, worth just reflecting that Kenyans and Ethiopians, so East Africans in the men's race, have now won 24 races. The last non-East African to win was Ronaldo da Costa back in 1998 in the men's race, and good old Irina Mikitenko in the women's in 2008, the last non-East African women's winner.
Now I remember that win of da Costa, the Brazilian, in 98, 25 years ago now. I think he ran 2:06.50, and I remember hearing about it and thinking, wow, 2:06.50, that's insane. But that's in days when anything under 2:10 was spectacular running. Now we're talking about the possibility in the next few years of a woman running under 2:10. 2:11.53, that winning time of Tigist Assefa this morning. It is just mind-blowingly powerful. It is a huge statement too for women stepping forward into the sunlight even further to wrench the big focus away from the likes of Eliud Kipchoge and the great male champions of years gone by. And, you know, I think that is the run of the day without any doubt. A brilliant run from Eliud, as you said, Chris, to win his 5th title. but a world record by over 2 minutes from Tigist Assefa.
Oh,
is the headline.
Yeah, it's the headline. It's the story of the day. And I think we knew that, didn't we, from about 25, 30 kilometres into the men's race. There's no doubt about it that Tigist Assefa was going to be the story of the day. She was comfortably inside world record pace for the entire race and just stretched away and showed all her 800 metre speed from all those years ago in the final few hundred metres of this race. Nice to see also, Tim, a truly global international race, and well, we're getting ready for the anniversary next year, of course. In 12 months' time, we'll be back here celebrating the 50th Berlin Marathon, but we still have the 49th to bring you, and what a sight that is from our aerial shot. We'll be bringing you every angle that we can. There is the Gorsche Stern, and there is the man of the moment, world record Eliud Kipchoge, quite simply the greatest marathon runner in history. Emil Petros, the German record holder, who's looking to seal his place in the Olympics next year. Of course, the Olympic qualifying times are up for grabs today in Berlin.
And Tigist Assefa, we saw there looking very calm, the 29-year-old Ethiopian, the reigning champion. When the gun goes, she'll be the defending champion. Set a course record last year by 2.5 minutes of 2 hours 15:37.
Little glimpse of Amos Kipruto there, who will be the main challenger to Eliud Kipchoge in the men's race. So 47,000 coiled springs getting ready to unleash themselves on this course. Their watches will be poised. Well, 12 months ago, it was all about this man, wasn't it? Eliud Kipchoge, who was looking to improve his own world record, and he went out at a frightening pace going through the first 5k in 14:14. He went through halfway in under an hour, the first man ever to do so. Eliud, the young Ethiopian, was the only man who could stick with him, but he ran the last 17 kilometres on his own and came through 2:01:09, taking 30 seconds off his own world record, and he could not believe it. Extraordinary.
Well, equally extraordinary was the improvement made by Tigist Assefa in only her second marathon. Her debut had been at 2:34. Last year, she improved on that by 18 minutes on the streets of the German capital, down to a course record of 2:15:37. And there's a rumour, with conditions perfect again this morning, that she wants to go for 2:12. She's apparently in fabulous shape, and, well, every reason to believe that she can get it right again.
But we could be looking perhaps at not one but two world records today. We shall find out. There, the split times wheel, of course, bring you as much information as we can. Certainly all the 5k splits throughout the race. We've got so much data at our disposal, but the key number 2:01:09 for Eliud Kipchoge last year, and confirmation that those are the average speeds, by the way. He actually went through halfway in 59:51, and a rare non-negative split.
Yeah, and it was an error. Apparently he'd been aiming for something like 60:40. There he is in all red, centre of the picture, Eliud Kipchoge. He was due to go for 60:40. Went out, well, the fat end of a minute faster than that. Said he just felt brilliant over the first 7 or 8k, so he stuck with that and then came back with a much slower second half, but still smashed his own world record in 2018 by 30 seconds. Well, let's take a look at the course now. Of course, this is a well-known dead flat route around the German capital. They start here on 17th June Strasse, less than 400 metres west of Brandenburg Gate. They go around the Siegersäule after 600 metres, then straight for about 2 kilometres before heading up to the northern part of the course. They pass the Otto von Bismarck Alley, wonderful name that, at 7k, and then head over to the east of the city, zigzagging around Cottbusser Tor, and heading back westwards now through 19-20k. There's the halfway point, and then they're into that southwest corner, the second half.
Yeah, through Schöneberg in front of the town hall, 25 kilometres. Around the 28-kilometre mark, the Wild Boar Wilde Eber roundabout. Great atmosphere there with lots of bands. 30 kilometres, and then they go through the memorial church, the Gedächtniskirche, built in 1895, still a major landmark in the German capital, and then zigzags towards the finish unter den Linden, and from the Brandenburg Gate, 352 metres to the finish line, and perhaps yet more history.
Well, there's the scene. You can see right of centre. That's the Brandenburg Gate with the columns. They will pass under that with 350 metres to go, as Chris said, and sprint towards that blue finish line. Start line down at the bottom of your picture with the first wave of athletes. As I said, almost 48,000, 47,912 runners from 156 nations for this 49th edition of the BMW Berlin Marathon. It is, of course, a World Athletics Platinum label road race, one of the Abbott World Marathon Majors, the sixth in that Majors series. They're looking to add a seventh. There is rumour of it being Sydney, but no decisions made yet.
And this, of course, marks the start of a busy autumn of marathons and road running. We've got Chicago, New York coming up in the next few weeks, and Amsterdam as well in October. The Siegersäule looking resplendent, and in a few minutes' time that'll be surrounded by thousands and thousands of runners. The countdown to the start of the race is on.
I just hope they move those two big yellow trucks. There's going to be a few runners passing through there. To the right of picture is the Tiergarten, just a glorious big forested area that is big enough to get a half-hour run in and more. It's crisscrossed by paths and lawns and little lakes and canals. It is truly a gorgeous city, Berlin. One of my favourite global cities because of the amount of green space, and yet a truly cosmopolitan, vibrant city.
And also such an important place historically and politically, of course. A brilliant place to come for a weekend, and of course, for many people to run a marathon.
Something quite magnificent about that Siegersäule victory column to commemorate German military triumphs of years, of centuries gone by. And Chris, they do so much right here, don't they? Year after year, they just ramp it up a little bit with the presentation of that start gantry, the atmosphere, the way the music is pumped out over this last hour for the gathering athletes, the amount of information given out by the PA system. Every little detail is considered and tweaked and improved.
Well, we talk about marginal gains, don't we, for the actual runners themselves, and I think there are plenty of marginal gains from Mark Milder, the race director, and his massive team who do a brilliant job. The messages of inclusivity and the carbon footprint, of course, increasingly important, as it has been for the last few years, with lots of recycling, trying to keep the carbon footprint of this event as low as possible.
What's also interesting, Chris, of course, is that only last Sunday, a week ago, the track season of 2023 finished after those remarkable World Championships in Budapest back in early August. Well, the championships, the track season rather, finishing in Eugene on the second day of the Diamond League Series, the Wanda Diamond League Series. Last Sunday, coming to a fabulous climax, perhaps the greatest ever two-day athletics meeting that, and this is a wonderful way to carry on the rhythm of great track and field athletics and road racing. Eliud Kipchoge, very much the favourite, Chris, but Kipruto and any one of those next half dozen or so names could really threaten.
Yes, they could. Just to reiterate, as Tim mentioned at the top of the programme, 12 men under 2:06. Eliud Kipchoge, of course, the pick of those names, running here, looking for a fifth victory, and in the women, well, quality throughout.
Yeah, Tigist Assefa, the defending champion, is the fastest, 2:15.37. As I said, 6 other women have broken 2:20. Sheila Chepkirui, well, the 32-year-old Kenyan, very experienced, 2:17 she ran in Valencia last year. Look out for Abea Chutu, she's a 2:18 marathon athlete. She was third here in Berlin last year. Indeed, the winner and the third and fourth places are back this year from 12 months ago. A little bit of mist, but that's probably a good thing, Chris. Keeps it cooler for the runners. Tigist Assefa, the third fastest athlete in history. Well, an idea idea there of the status of Tigist Assefa. She is now actually the 5th fastest in history. Just looking at the ranking lists, there have been some remarkably quick times through this last 12 months. Indeed, winner in Chicago last October was Ruth Chepngetich.
Our next athlete won the generally Berlin half marathon.
David Schoeneborn, one of the favourites for the German title, a 2:25 performer. The fastest German, of course.
This year's London Marathon, she took fourth
there is Chep Kirui, very experienced. Fourth in London, back in April in 2:18.51. She's run over a minute and a half quicker than that. Once around 68 minutes and halfway, we understand. And Tigist Assefa, there she is. What a shot that was last year. She improved her personal best by a rather cool 18 minutes to become the 3rd fastest in history. She is now the 5th fastest in history. She took 2.5 minutes off the course record. She said in a press conference Friday, "I'm not thinking about the world record." Well, there is a rumour that there is a different version of that.
Eliud Kipchoge is a history maker in Berlin yet again. So there we are. We are almost ready. 48,000 runners poised, waiting to get started. And of course, right at the front, the elite men, some of the best marathon runners on the planet. What a sight that is. Let's introduce you to some of the key names. Amanal Petros, the German record holder, the best German marathon runner of all time, looking to improve on his 2:06.27. He says he's in 2:04 shape. We shall see. European record, by the way. Bashir Abdi, 2:03.36, maybe in his thoughts. There is Amos Kipruto, 31 years old, here for the 2nd time, going head-to-head with Eliud Kipchoge for the 3rd time. And there is the master, quite simply, the best marathon runner the world has ever seen. Can he improve on that barely believable 2:01.09? He has won 15 of his 18 officially recognised marathons. He's a 4-time Berlin winner, and were he to win today, he would move ahead of the great Haile Gebrselassie. So yet more records on the table here for Eliud Kipchoge.
The one big question mark, Chris, of course, around Kipchoge is the fact that back in April in Boston, he had a poor day at the races. He really didn't enjoy his day on the hills of Boston at all. Some people said he didn't get his preparation right, but apparently his preparation for this has been as normal, absolutely superb, without any problems.
Into the last 10 seconds before the start of the 49th Berlin Marathon 2023.
3, 2, 1, go!
We are underway. 48,000 runners, each with their own goals, their own objectives, their own backstories, their own reasons for running. What a sight that is. A wave of humanity unleashed on the streets of Berlin this morning.
Well, I just wonder if the pacemakers will do a sound job this morning. Chris, they normally do in Berlin. It's one of those courses where it's relatively easy to get into a rhythm, but it's so flat that it almost feels downhill, I guess, when you're fresh and the adrenaline is surging from the start line.
Well, a word on the pacemakers. You can see that Kilimo, Kipkemboi and Chepkwony are the 3 pacemakers who've been designated to Eliud Kipchoge. Also, 3 pacemakers for Amos Kipruto and Tim. They've been a little bit coy, haven't they? Both the leading men about what they're going to go out at. We've been given times for the groups behind them, so through 62 at halfway, but blank on our pieces of paper, blank against Kipchoge and Kipruto.
No, that's exactly right. And I think one thing we do know is that Kipchoge and his team feel that last year maybe there was, despite smashing his own world record by 30 seconds, he made an error with the first half too quick, 59.40. And I think the belief is that something around 60 minutes exactly, or 60-20 would be better this morning. It'll be very interesting to see if they can tweak it, fine-tune it, and get it more right today. And that might yet result in a quicker time come his going under the Brandenburg Gate and towards the finish line.
So many questions of Eliud Kipchoge. You've already posed one of them. How will he respond to the disappointment of Boston in April? We shall see over the next couple of hours. What about Paris next year? I think it's fair to say, Tim, that remains his huge motivation. Nobody has ever won 3 Olympic marathon titles in history. That motivates him. That's why he gets out of bed in the morning. And I think the feeling is that coming to Berlin and then doing a spring marathon and then going to the Olympics in Paris is the most sensible way to do 3 marathons, rather than maybe New York, which previously he'd hinted he might do. So in front of the Siegersäule, and they're already into their running. 12 months ago, the first kilometre was done in 2:49. So we'll keep an eye on the clock here. But Kipchoge looks very comfortable, doesn't he, already? Don't be fooled by the serious face. He only starts smiling when it starts hurting.
Is it a smile or is it a grimace? It's a useful quality to have, keep people guessing about that. The first wave of the almost 48,000 getting their day underway. The whole city abuzz with the vast numbers of runners, because of course each runner brings several people with them on average, so restaurant bookings and everything else that you might need in your pre-race day routine is oversubscribed. Chris very sensibly booked a table for our dinner last night. But yeah, there is such a buzz. It's running through this weekend in the German capital.
Yeah, it is, and it's great, isn't it, when you get up in the morning, as we did this in the hotel, just people with their kit bags and getting ready. A real buzz of chatter in the hotel lobby and reception, and then you go out on the streets and everybody has got their own little story. Different languages being spoken, 150 different nations. Terrific. 2:47 through the first kilometre. So, again, such early stages, but that compares to 2:49 last year. So it's breezy, Tim. And Kipchoge there, second left of picture. And then Kipruto is also in there as well.
Yeah, 2:47. Well, that's promising. Let me tell you that 2-hour pace is 2:50.5 per kilometre. That would mean getting to, well, 10k in 28:25, to halfway in 59 obviously, and so on. But promising early start. They always get that first kilometre a little bit quicker than the average required to clear out and get away from the pack. And already, of course, it's thinning out and gaps developing, and world-class runners having to watch this little lead group ease away.
Centre of picture there, Kip Kemboy, just worth noting, a very respected pacemaker. He paced London in 2020 and also Enschede in 21 when Eliud Kipchoge won there as well. So I think he's got the trust of Kipchoge, and the other two, Chepkwony and Kilimo, have been assigned to the world record holder.
Of course, many of the elite athletes today, in both men's and women's races, looking for Olympic qualifying times. The Olympic qualifying time is 2:08.10, but even that doesn't guarantee you a place in the Olympic Games. It is an incredibly complicated qualifying system for the Olympic Games. The road to Paris, where the top 65 are guaranteed a slot for the Games. But yeah, huge concern in many nations about exactly how you can qualify for the Paris Olympic Games squads.
So we've got two groups you can see there. We've got Kipruto with Kipchoge. Korea is also in there as well. And then just a little bit further back, a group that's going to go through halfway, projected at around a 62 pace, so 2:04 pace. Chepkwony there on the right of picture, one of the pacemakers making his debut here. And Kilimo on the left. He's got a 2:08 personal best. He was 5th in Hamburg this year. Take us into the mind, Tim, of Eliud Kipchoge here. How is he looking to you in these early stages?
Gosh, I wish I could read his mind. Well, he's cool and calm and positive, of course, in the days leading up to the race. There was quite a reception for him when he came out of the customs area at the airport a few days ago. But I think he has to be confident. He has to put that Boston experience behind him. His training will have boosted his confidence if it did falter after that poor race on the east coast of the USA back in April, where he was down the field, finished in 8th place, I think it was, in Boston. 6th, in fact, just checking. But it was a really bad day at the races for him, and it was almost an optical illusion. You felt that watching him drop back as he did in London, 4 years ago, something like it, in the rain and the bad conditions. Although he did say he had a leg problem, around 30k, a leg problem developed in Boston, so maybe there was a good reason for that. But no, I think he'll come into this as positive and ready for a tough race as ever, Chris. And I say a tough race, he's used to racing against the clock, not really against too many opponents. I wonder if that'll be the case today. There's the elite women's pack, looking for Tigist Assefa. She wears F1 below her number. And there she is to the left, about third from left in the white vest. Assefa, easy to spot.
Yeah, just a question of knocking off these early kilometres. I think we've got a split time for the men's for the second kilometre.
We have, yeah, much more steady. A 2:47 open and then a 2:55, which, well, is very early days, but it gives them a projected time of just outside 2 hours.
Well, Kipchoge has been keen to stress through his agent, Valentine Troy, that the routine, the preparation has been absolutely spot on. They haven't changed anything at all, and that means a punishing schedule from his usual base up in Kattegat at 2,500 metres. That's about 25k up from Eldoret, for those of you who know that part of Kenya. All the endurance runs, the speed work's been good. And Eliud in the press conference was very keen to stress how important the team is, the coach, the technical side, the social media, the diet. He's got a huge army around him, and he says, and it's a quote he's given quite a few times, that 100% of myself is not as important as 1% of the team. And he is very generous in his tributes to the people around him, without whom he just simply couldn't do what he does.
Well, the 3k point reached in 8:31. That was at 2:48, so they've gone 2:47, 2:55, 2:48. So they are back inside 2 hour pace. The projected time, finishing time, 1:59.42. They'll be hovering around that, I'm sure, for many kilometres, so we won't mention it all the time. But yeah, setting off at a nice steady tempo. I say steady tempo, world record tempo, because we tend to get a little blasé about it, don't we, when Kipchoge is involved?
We do, and we were talking last night, amongst other things, about what it's like to run at that speed. And you and I have been on treadmills in various parts of the world, and you know, I challenge anybody to get onto a treadmill and set it at 20 kilometres plus an hour and see how long you can last. It is absolutely frightening just to do it for 30 seconds or a minute, never mind for 2 hours. It really is super quick.
Well, Kipchoge at 2:47, 2:48 per kilometre will be well inside world record schedule, and if he gets it right, he'll get to 5k in about 14:10, 14:12, something like that.
And already, Tim, a gap opening up between him and this man, Eliud Kipchoge, and we were wondering, and just to remind you, they've both been assigned 3 pacemakers each, different pacemakers. And just to underline, neither of the two main protagonists had given any information about what sort of pace they were going out at. I think there's a few mind games going on there, but there is Eliud Kipchoge, who is the second favourite here. 2:03.13, his personal best. All he really said of any real note in the press conference was, I'm aiming to improve on that personal best. We shall find out.
Well, that little group of 5 has broken away really quickly. Is it 5? Yes, it is. Wow. That indicates, Chris, clearly just how fast they're moving at. Under 2 hours tempo. And there's the group to the top right of picture, already with about a 50-metre lead as they cross the river there.
Yeah, over at the Spree for the first time. They'll come back later on in the race.
Approaching 4k just after the river. And then on to Alt Moabit Strasse, to the northwestern corner of the route, which is basically a rather convoluted way of saying it's a clockwise course around this city, but it's not quite as simple as that.
Kipchoge was asked why Berlin again rather than New York, because he'd said quite openly he wanted to try and win all 6 marathon majors. Boston, obviously, as we've mentioned, didn't go well. And I think the feeling was that he wanted to come back somewhere familiar. You know, he's won here 4 times, he's raced here 5 times. And he knows where he is, doesn't he? He says it's like coming home. He knows the team right from the arrival at the airport. Let's just dip in to see how Petros is getting on, the leading German. Looking good. Amanal Petros, 28 years old, with the record at 10K and half marathon and marathon. He's the fastest German in history over all those distances. But this is his debut in Berlin, and it's his hometown as well. He lives in Berlin. What an opportunity for him to get that qualifying time. Born and raised in Eritrea, fled the country as a teenager. Spends much of his year in Kenya. He's been training up in the Rift Valley with a group up there, and only came actually back to Germany just a few days ago, last Wednesday or Thursday.
What's interesting, Chris, is that you saw him running the Brussels 10,000 back on the 8th of September. So what, just 2.5 weeks ago, he ran 27.47, their personal best. Now that would ordinarily be very, very good indication that he's in fine fettle. The leg speed, the turnover is there, and the strength is there. But I just wonder if that wasn't a bit too close to this. You don't get too many elite marathon runners doing a 10,000 a couple of weeks before.
No, that's right. Yeah, it was a little bit odd. But it was a great night in Brussels that evening on in the 10,000 metres. Meanwhile, Kipchoge has got his foot on the gas here. He really means business. And I wonder whether there's going to be for him a reaction. He wants to get that frustration of Boston out of his system. Totally different course, of course, Tim, with all the hills. And yeah, he was a little bit irritated, I think, when somebody suggested, had he shown the Boston course enough respect? Because he went off very quickly, and did he really die on the hills in the latter stages?
Well, and many people said, look, he didn't, that respect would have manifested itself by doing some adjustments in training, and apparently he didn't adjust his training to accommodate those hills. Perhaps he felt that he does enough hill work as it is in his workouts. By the way, his 4th kilometre was a 2:50. That is exactly on 2-hour tempo, so they're still on schedule for under 2 hours at the moment. Approaching 5K, as you can see, bottom left of screen. And all looking good so far, touch wood.
Yes, and just to remind you, we will refer back to what happened here last year, which I hope you find is useful as a comparison, and we don't want to bombard you with too many numbers, but 14:14, look at the clock on the bottom of the picture. 14:14 is what he went through at 5 kilometres last year, and it's just inside. We'll wait for confirmation of that, but it looks very close, Tim, to the 14:14 of 12 months ago.
Yeah. 5K 14:11.
There you go.
It was a 2:50 again. So metronomic running from Kipchoge, and the pacemakers so far doing a great job. All credit to them. They've got Act 1 right.
Well, that's the first big tick. That's the first milestone ticked off. So just to confirm, at the moment, early stages, he's running inside 2-hour pace. And it's worth remembering that 12 months ago, he was actually inside 2 hours, Tim, from memory, up until about 25K last year. That he drifted outside the...
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Yeah. By the way, Kindi is Dursek Kindi. Year-old Ethiopian, has a best of 2:08. That was maybe a little optimistic. Minutes quicker than his personal best, but who knows? Perhaps. who's looking pretty comfortable. They're loping along in the second group. Kipchoge there, bottom right of that quintet. Such familiar, bouncy style he's got. Let's not forget how long he's... 20 years ago, okay? He sprinted in the Paris World Championship on the track to win the world title at 5,000 metres. And rather coolly, he beats a certain Kenyan Bekele. He beats Hisham El Garouj in that 5,000. He has got fantastic speed. Kipchoge, second to left there. Let's not forget, the fella's a 350 miler.
Yeah.
And that is the old shoe tech.
And talking of range, leads us nicely to Assefa, an 800-metre runner, the only woman to have run sub 2 minutes for 800 and a sub 220 marathon.
I know, I can't believe that. I mean, you look at Assefa's CV, the reigning champion. There she is in the white vest. She ran 1:59 back in